Hello, and welcome to this workshop about matching up with databases. Matching up with databases. One of the hardest parts about doing research in a library is just knowing where to start, because there are so many possibilities for databases that you could use. We have over 300 in our subscription base here at McDermott Library, and often it is difficult or confusing for students to know where to start. I think it is actually useful to look at research as almost like a dating relationship. In fact, as you get deeper into higher degrees, you will spend more and more time with particular databases to the point that it does sort of feel like a relationship. So here are some of the ways that research and dating can be similar. First and foremost, it really helps to know what you want. And as a side note, the more advanced you get in your research, the more specific your wants are going to become. Some candidates will just not be compatible. Doesn't mean they're not good databases, just means they're not the right database for you. And it is a lot easier if you find the right fit for you instead of trying to make the wrong fit work. So let's talk about that first step. First, it's really important that you know what you want when you're looking at a database. You can get this information from a lot of different places. The easiest place to begin is to look at the assignment details from your professor. Many times your assignment is going to tell you exactly what type of thing you need to use. For example, you have to have 5 sources and 3 of them have to be peer reviewed. That's the standard criteria for our rhetoric here at UTD. But other classes may require you to use a combination of primary and secondary sources, or they may require you to use studies that are looking at empirical evidence, or they may require you to use studies that are reporting on an experiment, etc., etc. Those criteria are going to help you decide which database has the right type of resource for you. If you don't have that type of restrictions, you can get those ideas from looking at what you are trying to accomplish, what type of paper you are writing. And again, as you get to know more about your field, you will get to understand what types of literature exist in your field and how they can be used. As basic examples, books are usually the best sources if you are trying to get a comprehensive overview of a topic in one place. So you would want to choose a source that is indexing books. Articles are the type of sources that you will usually use for finer points or nuanced arguments related to a subject. They have a smaller scope, but they tend to go deeper into that one question that they're looking at. Statistics and data sources are places where you will find empirical evidence that is more or less separate from a narrative approach. So if you're looking for pure numbers, you would use a database that's storing statistics or data. Primary sources are used in a lot of the humanities to give you unfiltered observations. These are direct reports of an event or the original literature that is being studied. So now that we've decided what we want, we filled out our little Match.com profile. Seriously, it's useful to have a jotted down list of what you're looking for. Then we're going to look for viable candidates. A really good place to begin this is to just use the subject lists on the database pages to narrow down to databases in your field. So this is a screenshot from the library's homepage, and if you click on our homepage, which is utdallas.edu/library, there's a tab for databases, and there's a pull-down menu where you can select by subject. This will give you only the databases that we, the librarians, have tagged as being useful for that particular subject. Then when you're within your subject, you will select your matches based on the descriptions that tell you what they cover. So for example, this is 12 databases from our United States history list. And as you can tell, well, it's not all 12 of them. This is some of the databases from our list for history United States. These databases are extremely specific in what they collect. American History and Life is a large database that covers all kinds of cultural, economic, and diplomatic histories of the United States, Canada, and Mexico. If you're not looking for something in the United States, Canada, or Mexico, you're probably A, not going to be on this list, but B, you're not going to find what you're looking for in American History and Life. Let's look at the rest of the selections on this page. African American communities. Again, this is an even more specific audience than before. This is one of our newest databases, but this is looking at pamphlets, newspapers, and periodicals that were created by African American communities for African American communities. This is a great resource if you are resourcing Black studies or African American studies or minority studies, but it's, again, very, very specific. Likewise, with American Indian newspapers. Actually, I was really excited when we finally got this. This was a system-wide subscription, meaning that it was selected at the UT level, and all of the participating UT schools got access to it. So we're really lucky to be part of such a large system that could get really specific databases like this one. But American Indian Newspapers is only collecting 200 years of print journalism from the US and Canada published by American Indians, that's Native Americans. And then American periodicals would be a great source for periodicals or primary source literature from the United States, but you would want to look at the time range here. This is only going from 1740, which is pretty far back, but only up to 1940. So we're going to get through the beginning of World War II, but nothing after that. So this would not be a great place to research the press coverage of the moon landing in the 1960s. Those all seem like really simple explanations, but these are the type of comparisons that you can do if you really know what you're looking at. And where we will occasionally have students get lost is if they go too quickly on making their choices and they just grab a database. These details should help you out. So here's an example. Swipe left or right. If Joe is looking for articles about the literary themes of F. Scott Fitzgerald, which of these databases is going to help him out? The Literature Power Search, which searches Essay and General Literature Index, the Essay and General Literature Retrospective, Humanities and Social Science Index, and the Retrospective, and the Humanities Full Text, Literature Reference Center, and the MLA International Bibliography. This one would be a swipe right. That's definitely going to contain something that has F. Scott Fitzgerald in it. Below that, let's look at Bloom's Literary Criticism ebook collection. The Bloom's Literary Criticism ebook collection includes 600 titles, that's books, about major dramatists, modern critical views, literary themes, and Shakespeare through the ages. So this is a great collection of books about literary criticism. So is this one going to work for Joe or not? If you had said yes, swipe right, you would have been wrong, but only because of a very specific point out here. Joe is looking for articles. So if Joe is just doing a general literary criticism, Bloom's would be a great database for him. But if he's looking specifically for articles, that's not what Bloom collects. MLA International Bibliography is actually my go-to for literature studies, and it is included in the Literature Power Search. But this is an index to periodicals and essays from 1921 on, and it covers all the fields of literature, language, and linguistics and folklore, and it is a great index for literary criticism. So this would be another swipe right. So two rights, get the R in there, and one left on this particular example. So that's a pretty basic example of some things that you could use our databases for, or some ways that you could select a database for you. A great option if you are really having trouble matching up your needs to a particular database. We do have live chat on all of our websites, including the database pages. Now I'm going to exit out of the PowerPoint at this point, and I'm going to pull up a live search. All right, so this is our library's website. So I'm just going to reiterate by showing you how I did what I just did. So this is the library's website, utdallas.edu/library. Here's the live chat if you need to ask any questions of us. You can also schedule a meeting for a one-on-one for more in-depth consultation. So the Discover search is a really good just everything search. I always like to point that out as if you really don't know where to look for, Discover is a great option because it looks through many, many databases all at once. Here is where we would choose as individual databases. This is where we get into those subject-specific searches. So I would use the pull down here to kind of refine by subject. And one of the reasons I chose literature, I thought this was really interesting, is I did have a question that came up recently. I think it was either Friday of last week or Monday of this week, where a student needed to find a book on a particular genre of American fiction, but only fiction that was after 1945, and it had to be one author, not multiple authors, and it had to be from a university press. So this student had a lot of criteria to check off. And this is one of those cases where I had to go even beyond just the subject area. Bloom's Literary Criticism ebook would have been a great one to go at for that one. It's only 600 titles, but they're definitely on target. There was another database I ended up using for that particular student, which was WorldCat. Let me clear the filters and show you all of my W's. So in that case, the reason I chose WorldCat is this database, although this looks through books at libraries, including our own library, it was unique in that I was able to specify the publisher field, which the publisher field is included in, for example, our library catalog, but it is not a limited searchable field. So in this case, I chose the database not just for the subject coverage, but also because of the facets that are available to search within it. So that's a more advanced example of choosing a database. And even we as librarians sometimes have to try more than one database to get what we're looking for. So I believe I'm still alone in the session. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just double check on that one. If there's any questions, I can now answer them. But yeah, okay, I'm still alone, so no participants today. So I would like to thank myself for joining me today. This session has been recorded and will be edited from our streaming and reposted in our YouTube channel. So if you need help selecting a database, chances are you are viewing this sometime in the future, and I'm now in your past. And that just makes it really weird to figure out what tense to use. So have a great tomorrow. Bye.